If we want to go to heaven, we need a total transformation. We need it as individuals, and we need it as a church. And the time has come to speak about these things, because we are told that the straight testimony will cause the shaking. We will have to have a total transformation. Well, this evening's lecture is just entitled Ruth. We all remember our theme slide, total transformation. And be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God. This whole series is designed for the church. It's about God's church. And we are looking at all the problems associated with the church. But no matter what the conditions, this is His church. And we have such beautiful typologies in the Bible, and we've dealt with many of them. We've dealt with the whole typology of the children of Israel as it applies to the final call out of Egypt and Babylon in the last days. But there are beautiful examples in the Bible of this church and this relationship. So these typologies add to the picture and color it in. And we will want to have a look at some of these just to make the picture complete. Not just to look at the exodus of the children of God in totality, but also just a little bit of a personal touch that the Lord has put in His Word. If we look at the historical setting in terms of Moab, where the children of Israel actually encamped just before they went across the Jordan, the setting of the story is explicitly stated in the opening words of the book, in the days when the judges ruled. There was a famine in the land. The statement is by no means definite, for there was more than one famine in the land of Palestine during the time of the judges. However, comparing the genealogy of David, as given in the last verses of the book of Ruth, with David's genealogy, as given in the first chapter of Matthew, we discover Boaz's mother listed as Rahab. And there are no compelling reasons for supposing that this is anyone else than Rahab of Jericho. If she was his own mother, the book of Ruth would come rather early in the period of Judges. Some ancient traditions, followed by Josephus, place the book of Ruth in the time of Eli, which would better fit Boaz as David's great-grandfather. Either could be true, since mother and father can also mean grandparents or ancestors. Personally, I favor the early one. No particular reason, but I favor it. Now, the Moabites were of Semitic stock, being descendants of Lot. Abraham's nephew, and the chief deity of the Moabites was the god Chemosh, who seems to have, required human sacrifices. This comes from the concordance. So we're just getting a little bit of background to the book of Ruth. We know little of the history of the Moabites after the account of their origin, which was not too noble, as we all know, until the time of the Exodus. Sometime before the establishment of the kingdom in Israel, the Amorites occupied that part of Moab lying north of Arnon, but Israel subdued the Amorites and occupied their part of what had been Moabite territory. So actually they almost did them a favor. When Balak the son of Zippor saw that the Israelites encamped upon the very borders of his country, he entered into alliance with the Midianites and called in the aid of the apostate prophet Balaam. And we've dealt with those typologies. So now we know the setting. Moab is like a sister church, if you like, to the Israelites. And King Saul eventually smote Moab, but he didn't subdue it. And then we find David placing his father and mother under the protection of the king of Moab, perhaps because he had this family relationship with the Moabites. So I find it fascinating that David should, have this relationship with Moab. But eventually David, as we are told, made war on Moab and totally subdued them. So that we find in the concordance. Now that was the god that they worship, Chemosh. And we read in 1 Kings 11:7, then did Solomon build a high place for Chemosh. So he also had a little bit of a tender spot for them, the abomination of Moab. In the hill that is before Jerusalem, and for Moloch, the abomination of the children of Ammon. So he was also enticed by these. Fascinating. These required human sacrifices to be made to them. And that is why God calls them an abomination, or this type of worship. Now, we're going to go through the book of Ruth and see if we can pick up some of these typologies pertaining to God's church. Now, it came to pass in the days when the judges ruled that there was a famine in the land. And a certain man of Bethlehem, Judah. So there were two Bethlehems. So this one says, which one? That's the same Bethlehem where Jesus was born. Very specific, that we don't make a mistake. The Bible is very specific. And he went to sojourn in the country of Moab, he and his wife and his 2 sons. Not the wisest thing to do. I mean, we also do that, don't we? We also sometimes sojourn amongst the Moabites. What would be the modern equivalent? To think that the other Protestant churches are the same as those who have aligned themselves in obedience to God's law. They're not the same. Now, I love this typology. It's so cute. The name of the man was Elimelech, and the name of his wife, Naomi, and the name of his 2 sons, I guess in American you'd say Malon, right? We would say Malon, but it doesn't matter. And Kilion, and they were Ephratites of Bethlehem, Judah. And they came into the country of Moab and continued there. Now, if I was a parent, those are probably the last names that I would choose to give my children. This is incredible. But remember that in typology and in the Bible, the name always stands for something. You didn't just give a name. And I think God also inspired the giving of certain names. And God changed names, didn't he? And Elimelech, Naomi's husband, died, and she was left and her 2 sons, and they took them wives of the women of Moab. The name of the one was Orpah, and the other one was Ruth. So here we have quite a few names, and they dwelled there about 10 years. And Mahlon, he was the husband of Ruth, and Chilion died, also both of them, and the woman was left of her 2 sons and her husband. So she was without descendants. So Naomi was in trouble. Now let's have a look at these names. I like the names. Elimelech, this name means my God is king. Naomi means my pleasantness. Ruth, friend. Nice name, eh? Friend. Orpah, that's the sister. Some think that the name Orpah means stubborn. Others suggest that it comes from Ephra, a fawn or a hind. Perhaps not too bad. Mahlon, that's the husband of Ruth. There's some difference of opinion as to the meaning of this name, as also regarding that of his brother. One possible meaning is sickly. Would you call your child sickly? Some might contend that his early death confirms this as the meaning of the name. And Chilion, possibly this name means pining away, withering away, pining. So here were 2 sickly kids, the sickly brothers. It may be that neither this boy nor his brother appeared sturdy at birth. No, I think that these names are there for a reason, and God writes his typology even into the names of the individuals. Naomi is my pleasantness, Ruth is a friend, Elimelech, my God is king. But the ones that die in Moab, they are sickly and pining away. Does that begin to develop a story? You will be sickly and you will pine away, and eventually you will die if you stay there. So the solution is to go home. Well, this is Wadi al-Muyib in Moab, where Israel crossed and where Ruth and Naomi lived. And this is the exact place. If you look across there, it's sort of barren hills. And, well, interesting country. Some of the fossils in that area. So this shows that it was under the water during the flood as well. That comes from that area. So separated from God, could we say that we are sickly and subject to death in the story? Only as we unite with Christ can we find life. Naomi's sufferings prepared her to lead Ruth to the promised land, and both figuratively and literally. So here is a typological enactment with a greater reality. God may permit suffering in order that our characters may be prepared for service and for citizenship in His kingdom. Or, like the lost son, we might end up there amongst the pods of the pigs, and it's up to us to say, I will go back to my father's home, or to pine away and die. Let's continue the story. Ruth chapter 1, verse 6, and then she arose with her daughters-in-law, that she might return from the country of Moab, for she had heard in the country of Moab how that the Lord had visited His people in giving them bread. Bread of life, typologies. Wherefore she went forth out of the place where she was, and her 2 daughters-in-law with her, and they went on their way to return unto the land of Judah. Now, the daughters-in-law had never been away, so they couldn't return, but they are returning. So they are like the prodigals. And Naomi said unto her 2 daughters-in-law, Go return each to her mother's house. She sent them away. Go away. The Lord deal kindly with you as you have dealt with the dead and with me, and the Lord grant you that you might find rest, each of you, in the house of her husband. Then she kissed them, and they lifted up their voice, and they wept. And they said unto her, Surely we will return with thee unto thy people. How many of them said we will return? Both of them. And Naomi said, Turn again, my daughters. Why will you go with me? Are there yet any more sons in my womb that they may be your husbands? Because the idea was always, that the offspring of the dead should be propagated by the next in the generation, and there was nothing there. Turn again, my daughters, go your way, for I am too old to have a husband. If I should say I have hope, if I should have a husband also tonight, and also should bear sons. So if we hop a little bit to Revelation 22:17, it says, And the Spirit and the bride say, Come. It doesn't say, and only the Spirit says, Come. It says, the Spirit and the bride say, Come. So does God work through His church, yes or no? Yes. He doesn't just bypass it. He uses the church to call people. And let him that hears say, Come. And let him that is athirst come. And whoever will, let him take the water of life freely. Here is a call into God's church. We read in the spirit of prophecy, all who like Rahab the Canaanite and Ruth the Moabitess turned from idolatry to worship the true God were to unite themselves with His chosen people. You cannot separate the people of God in this plan of salvation from Christ, because the bride and the bridegroom are one. Doesn't He say the 2 shall be one flesh? As the number of Israel increased, they were to enlarge their borders until their kingdom should embrace the world. But they never did what they had to do. So let's continue. Would you tarry for them to till they were grown, these husbands that would come from her womb? Would you stay for them from having husbands? Nay, my daughters, for it grieveth me much for your sakes that the hand of the Lord is gone out against me. And they lifted up their voice and they wept again. And Orpah kissed her mother-in-law, but Ruth clave unto her. So the Spirit says, Go. And Ruth says, But the other one says, Bye. There were 2 sons. The one says, I go, and he went not. And the other one said, No, but he went. Which one is better? Here it's slightly better. They both said, We'll go. But eventually the one says, Nah, it's too tough. It's too tough. I'm not going to do it. But Ruth clave unto her. And she said, Behold, thy sister-in-law is gone back unto her people and unto her gods. Return thou after thy sister. Again she says, Go. And Ruth said, Entreat me not to leave thee, or to return from following after thee. For whither thou goest, I will go, and where thou lodgest, I will lodge. Thy people shall be my people, and thy God my God. Is it a package deal? Yes or no? It's a package deal. It's a trip into uncertainty that not everyone is willing to make. But it's a package deal. You get the one, you get the other. You get the God, you get His people. You cannot separate the two from each other. Now, this prompting, go away, do we have it somewhere else? Do you remember how Jacob wrestled with the angel? And the angel said, get ye hence, go, go. If he went, what would have happened? He would have been lost. It must be a heart's desire. In other words, you must realize with your whole being that if you do not cling to that angel, you will be lost. It mustn't be just something that you shake out of your sleeve. Now, the one sister said, I'm off. It's too tough. But the other one said, I will not let you go, lest you bless me. And so she says, where you go, I will go. Where you live, I will live. Your people shall be my people, and your God shall be my God. And where you die, now this gets interesting, I will die. Did you have any intentions of leaving at some stage? Maybe when mother-in-law is no longer there or whatever? This is before she has any affiliation. She'd made a decision. Those people are going to be her people. And there will I be buried. I'm not going to leave again. That's it. This is my decision. And when it comes to relationships with God's people, that's our decision. That's our decision. The Lord does so to me, and more so if aught but death part thee and me. Genesis 32:26, and he said, let me go, for the day breaketh. And he said, I will not let thee go, except thee bless me. So when she saw that she was, it's nice. You know, once you start reading the Bible typologically, it's not just a story. It becomes a personal life and death issue. And that's what makes the Bible different than any other religious book on the planet. Because no other book could build a typology like this into a life story. It's just not possible. And no human being can think it up either. So consistently over a period of over 1,000 years. Forget it. This is divine inspiration. Steadfastly minded. Not to the left and not to the right. Set your faces flint. To go with her, then she left speaking unto her. So they went until they came to Bethlehem. Now that means bread basket. And it came to pass when they were come to Bethlehem that all the city was moved about them. In other words, there was great excitement in the city. That's how it should be. If someone comes into the ranks of the church, if we have brotherly love, no matter where that person comes from, we must be in agitation with excitement. The Bible tells us we're not always very good at it, because when the prodigal son came home, what happened? The brother's face was pretty sour. And so we sometimes have that as well. Shame on us. Shame on us. And they said, it is Naomi. Or is it Naomi? And she said unto them, call me not Naomi, call me Mara. Mara means bitterness. For the Almighty has dealt very bitterly with me. I went out full, and the Lord has brought me home again empty. What happens if you go to Moab? you get emptied. You don't get filled. You get emptied. Eventually, there's nothing left but emptiness. Why then call me Naomi, seeing the Lord has testified against me and the Almighty has afflicted me? So Naomi returned, and Ruth the Moabitess, her daughter-in-law, with her, which returned out of the country of Moab. So there's a coming out. And they came to Bethlehem in the beginning of the barley harvest. Here we have a harvest. And a harvest is typological of the harvest of God's people. And the barley harvest particularly is interesting because when it came to the wave offering, the sheaf that was waved was a barley sheath. And it was a type of the first fruits of the resurrection with Jesus Christ. So here is tremendous typology. And Naomi had a kinsman of her husband, someone who's related, a mighty man of wealth. Does that ring a typological bell? This isn't just anyone. Of the family of Elimelech, and his name was Boaz. Now that's fascinating. Now everybody in God's church are children of the Most High, princes and princesses. So they are children of the king. Are they therefore related to this king? Yes or no? Yes, they're relatives, close relatives. And this man had great wealth, and he was a mighty man. So who is he? He's a type of Christ. And Ruth the Moabitess said unto Naomi, let me now go to the field and glean ears of corn after him. Oh, the story gets so cute. In whose sight I shall find what? Grace. So here is the story of coming into God's church and finding grace with Christ. And Naomi said unto her, go, my daughter. And she went and came and gleaned in the field after the reapers. Her hap was to light on a part of the field belonging unto Boaz. So if we put that into more modern English, it would be, by chance she happened to come into Boaz's field. But now, of course, there's no such thing as chance. The world calls it chance. We call it providence. So, by chance, by providence, she came into the field of Boaz, who was of the kindred of Elimelech, one of his children of God. Her hap. It was a chance in reference to second causes, but ordered by God's providence. God wisely orders small events, even those that seem altogether contingent. Many a great affair is brought about by a little turn, fortuitous as to men, but designed by God. I thought that was quite well put. Now the story unfolds, and behold, Boaz came from Bethlehem. Now, I think they're really putting that point down so that we don't forget. He came from Bethlehem, the bread basket. And we're dealing with a harvest here. And a harvest has to do with the harvest of souls. And said unto the reapers, Lord, the Lord be with you. And they answered him, the Lord bless thee. So there was this courteous relationship between the owner of the land and his workers. There was no lording it over them. Do you notice that? Then said Boaz unto his servant, that was set over the reapers, whose damsel is this? And the servant that was set over the reapers answered and said, it is the Moabitish damsel that came back with Naomi out of the country of Moab. And she said, I pray you, let me glean and gather after the reapers among the sheaves. So she came and has continued even from morning until now, that she tarried a little in the house. So, what is her work attitude? She's involved. She's right there. She's gleaning. And she's getting bread. She's feeding herself from what belongs to Boaz. Then said Boaz unto Ruth, hearest thou not, my daughter? Go not to glean in another field. Neither go from hence, but abide here fast by my maidens. Here are the maidens, and the maidens typify the church. Stay here. Don't go away. This is it. There's nothing else. This is where you belong. Let thine eyes be on the field that they do reap, and go thou after them. Have I not charged the young men that they shall not touch thee? This typology gets interesting. And when thou art athirst, go unto the vessels and drink of that which the young men have drawn. So here she is with Boaz, one of the woodcuts, and she fell on her face and bowed herself to the ground and said unto him, why have I found grace in thine eyes? That's us. Every single one of us bows down and says, why have I found grace in thine eyes? She's got nothing. She's a Moabitess. Her god was Chemosh. Her sister went back to her gods and to her family. But she said, your God shall be my God. And here she is. That thou shouldst take knowledge of me, seeing I am a stranger. We're all strangers when we come into this church. And Boaz answered and said unto her, and now we can see another typology. It has fully been shown me all that thou hast done unto thy mother-in-law since the death of thine husband. God is fully informed of everything we do. He knows us inside out. And thou hast left thy father and thy mother. Are you hearing things? And the land of thy nativity, and art come unto a people which thou knewest not heretofore. So, conversion to Christ means coming to a people that thou knewest not heretofore. How many people want to do that? They want to have Christ, but they want to stay in the same circumstances that they were before. You cannot do it. It's a package deal. You get the people together with Christ. The Lord recompense thy work, and a full reward be given thee of the Lord God of Israel, under whose wings thou had come to trust. Powerful, powerful typology. Unbelievable. If we look in the Gospel of Mark, chapter 10, And Jesus answered and said, Verily I say unto you, there is no man that has left house, or brethren, or sisters, or father, or mother, or wife, or children, or lands, for my sake and the gospel's, but he shall receive 100-fold now in this time houses and brethren and sisters. Now, if you have left them, who are these that you are getting? They're not the same ones. You're getting another family. This is the family of God. And mothers and children and lands with persecutions. I like God because He's so honest. He doesn't say, wow, come to me, it's going to be it's going to be an easy task. No, this is a thorny road. If you make this change, you will be persecuted. And in the world to come, eternal life. All right? Then she said, Let me find favor in thy sight, my Lord, for thou hast comforted me. So in this stressful situation of coming to a totally new people, where shall we find comfort? With Christ. It's your only comfort. Because in the beginning, before you find your feet and all of these things, you're just going to have tears. He's your comfort. And you have to cling to Him and say, I will not let you go, because that's all you'll have. And for that thou hast spoken friendly unto thine handmaid. This gives you something of the character of Jesus. Though I be not like unto one of thine handmaidens. I'm not yet one of them. I have to settle into this church. I've come out of this situation, out of this world, out of spiritism, out of drugs, out of whatever, out of Babylon, and I've come into the church, and I just haven't had this experience yet. But thank you that you are kind and friendly to me. And Boaz said unto her, At mealtime come thou hither, and eat of the bread, and dip thy morsel into the vinegar. That's like saying bread and wine. The body and the blood of Christ. Come and internalize the truth so that you may grow. Come and eat the heavenly manna so that you may understand. And she sat beside the reapers, and he reached her parched corn, and she did eat and was sufficed and left. Who's going to feed you under the circumstances that you will find yourself in a new church? Sometimes you come into a church where there is just no one who seems to care. And yet, you have to stay there. So your only nurture will come from the antitypical Boaz. And when she was risen up to glean, Boaz commanded his young men, saying, Let her glean even amongst the sheaves, and reproach her not. And this is so cute. And let also some of the handfuls of purpose for her. So when you're gleaning, drop some on purpose. Just drop it there for her. Who are the young men? She's with the women. And who are the young men? They're the angels. And the angels will drop morsels of heavenly manna for you as you glean in the Lord's vineyard. They will keep a watchful eye over you. And occasionally, you will pick up more than you expected. And again, you will say, wow, that's chance. No, it's not chance. God will take care of those who are serious about their religion. Let some fall of the handfuls on purpose for her, and leave them, that she may glean them, and rebuke her not. So she gleaned in the field until even, and beat out that she had gleaned, and it was about an ephah of barley. That's a lot. We read, keep your wants, your joys, your sorrows, your cares, your fears before God. You cannot burden him. You cannot weary him. He who numbers the hairs of your head is not indifferent to the wants of his children. The Lord is very pitiful, of tender mercy, James 5:11. His heart of love is touched by our sorrows and even by our utterances of them. Take to him everything that perplexes the mind. Nothing is too great for him to bear. For he holds up worlds. He rules over all the affairs of the universe. Nothing that in any way concerns our peace is too small for him to notice. There is no chapter in our experience too dark for him to read, and there is no perplexity too difficult for him to unravel. No calamity can befall the least of his children, no anxiety harass the soul, no joy cheer, no sincere prayer escape the lips, of which our Heavenly Father is unobservant, or in which he takes no immediate interest. He healeth the broken in heart and bindeth up their wounds. You know, he could have taken her and said, wow, you know, I've heard you've had so many troubles. Come, let me set you on your feet. Given it doesn't work like that. How does it work? Slowly. You slowly start internalizing him. But he takes care of you, gives you your morsel, drops the thing here on purpose, takes care of all your needs. It's incredible. The relations between God and each soul are as distinct and full as though there were not another soul upon the earth to share his watch care, nor another soul for whom he gave his beloved Son. Steps to Christ, page 100. It's beautiful. And she took it up and went into the city, and her mother-in-law saw what she had gleaned, and she brought forth and gave to her that she had reserved after she was sufficed. So she didn't keep it to herself. What did she start doing with her gleanings? Share them. Share them. So right from the beginning, even though you seem to be walking behind as you come, start sharing. And her mother-in-law said unto her, where hast thou gleaned today? And where wroughtest thou? That's an important question. Where do we glean during the day? Where do we find our inspiration from during the day? Blessed be he that did take knowledge of thee. And she showed her mother-in-law with whom she had wrought, and said, the man's name with whom I wrought today is Boaz. That's a fascinating name. We'll come to it a little later. And Naomi said unto her daughter-in-law, blessed be the Lord, who has not left off his kindness to the living and to the dead. And Naomi said unto her, the man is near of kin unto us, one of our close kinsmen. He's very closely related. He's a next kinman. And Ruth the Moabitess said, now notice what she said. He said unto me also, thou shalt keep fast by my young men until they have ended all my harvest. How long? Until the end. You don't leave this church. We're talking about the typology of the church. You don't leave until the harvest is over, either because you go to sleep or because the Lord comes in the clouds of heaven. Here you stay. Here's a note for you. She tells what kindness Boaz had showed her, but not how he had commended her. So humility teaches not only not to praise ourselves, but not to be forward in repeating the praise which others have given us. That's an important lesson we'll have to learn. We're very fond of the praise of men. All right, so there's this relationship, and it's going to be a relationship for the long haul, until the end of the harvest of souls. Verse 22 says, And Naomi said unto Ruth her daughter-in-law, It is good, my daughter, that thou go out with his maidens, that they meet thee not in any other field. How many times have we read this now? Is God trying to make a point here? If you've made this decision, where do you stay? You stay here. You stay in the church. We have nothing to do with the sister churches that we came out of. The Moabites and all of those. We've got nothing to do with them. The Edomites, the Midianites, whatever they're called, stay out. That doesn't mean I don't witness to them, but I have separated myself. Don't go to another field. And we have people today that think it makes no difference, and we have field exchanges. Have you noticed that? No field exchanges. You separate yourself unto the Lord. And so she kept fast by the maidens of Boaz, to glean unto the end of the barley harvest and of the wheat harvest. So that's it. You stay right until the end. And dwelt with her mother-in-law. She became a Seventh-day Adventist till the end. No compromise. Then Naomi, her mother-in-law, said unto her, My daughter, shall I not seek rest for thee? Rest, that it may be well with thee? And now is not Boaz of our kindred, with whose maidens thou wast? Behold, he winnoweth barley tonight in the threshing floor. If you want to be part of the harvest of the Son of Man, you better have married him. Otherwise, you're going to miss out. So, wash thyself. Anoint thee. Put thy raiment upon thee. In modern terms, we could say baptism, anointing by the Spirit, and putting on the garment of righteousness which Christ gives us. When we come out, that's what we do. And get thee down to the floor. But make not thyself known unto the man until he has done eating and drinking, and it shall be, when he lieth down, that thou shalt mark the place where he shall lie, and thou shalt go in and uncover his feet, and lay thee down. And he will tell thee what thou shalt do. He will tell you what thou shalt do. You must be led by the Spirit of Christ. He will tell you what you must do. And she said unto her, All that thou sayest unto me, I will do. And she went down unto the floor and did according to all that her mother-in-law bade her. And when Boaz had eaten and drunk and his heart was merry, some people, want to insinuate that he was intoxicated here. No. He was glad. That's all it says. He says he was joyful because of the harvest. She went to lie down at the end of the heap of corn, and she came softly and uncovered his feet and laid her down. And it came to pass at, another word that we have to pick up, midnight. that the man was afraid and turned himself, and behold, a woman lay at his feet. And he said, Who art thou? And she answered, I am Ruth, thine handmaid. Spread therefore thy skirt over thine handmaid, for thou art a near kinsman. That's a marriage proposal. She has the guts to make a marriage proposal. Jacob had the guts to say, I will not let you go, even though God said go. Jacob made a marriage proposal. I won't. I will not let you go. So, to spread the skirt, that is, take me to be thy wife and perform the duty of a husband to me. Not there and then, later. All things in virtue and decency. Ruth 3:10. And he said, Blessed be thou of the Lord, my daughter, for thou hast showed more kindness in the latter end than at the beginning. Is that Christian growth? Yes or no? Inasmuch as thou followest not young men, whether poor or rich, you're seeking a heavenly relationship. And now, my daughter, fear not. That's something that Jesus said very often. I will do to thee all that thou requirest, for all the city of my people does know that thou art a virtuous woman. So here is a virtuous woman. So there was nothing strange happening here. This was a decent conversation. And now it is true that I am thy near kin, howbeit there's a kinsman nearer than I. This gets interesting. Tarry this night, and it shall be in the morning, that if he will perform unto thee the part of a kinsman, well, let him do the kinsman's part. But if he will not do the part of a kinsman's to thee, then will I do the part of a kinsman to thee, as the Lord liveth, lie down until morning. So we had to go and negotiate with someone who was in the genealogy a closer relative. Is there someone that we belong to before we come to Christ? Isn't there another king of this world? And that relationship must be severed before we can have the other relationship. And she laid his feet until morning, and she rose up before one could know another. And he said, Let it not be known that a woman came into the floor. So he's keeping it discreet. He doesn't go and say, that one asked? No. He's discreet. We read in the spirit of prophecy, the Bible is a revelation of the divine will and purpose of God. Those who follow his teachings are doers of the word of Christ. And by this means they bring solid timber into their character building. Let us hear the words of inspiration which exhort us to be pitiful and be courteous. Boaz represented the character of the Christian gentleman. Like Abraham, he commanded his household after him to keep the way of the Lord, to do justice and judgment. He showed courtesy to all his servants as he passed along among his workmen in the field. He said unto his reapers, The Lord be with you. And they answered him, The Lord bless thee. Here is a lesson for both masters and servants, for employers and employed. The servants are strengthened in their hearts to do righteously, to be faithful to masters who manifest respectful kindness and courtesy towards them. Christians should be the most courteous people in the world. Are we the most courteous people in the world? I don't think so, not always. He said, Bring the veil that thou hast upon thee. That's sort of like an apron. And when she held it, he measured 6 measures of barley and laid it in her, and she went into the city. I don't want to go too far with the typology, so we'll just leave it there. And when she came to her mother-in-law, she said, "What art thou, my daughter?" Actually, she said, "Who art thou?" This is not a question of doubting, but of wonder. What happened to you? Look at you. Who are you? What's happened to you? "Art thou in very deed, my daughter? I can hardly believe it. How camest thou hither in this manner and thus early?" What happened? Excitement. And she told her all that the man had done to her. Was there another woman who did the same thing? Was there another woman somewhere at a well who went and told them that he told them all and all these things? And she said, "These 6 measures of barley gave he me, for he said, Go not empty unto thy mother-in-law." Then said she, "Sit still, my daughter, until thou know how the matter will fall. For the man will not rest until he have finished the thing this day." Jesus doesn't leave anything undone. He will work for his children. We read of Christ's relation to his people. There's a beautiful illustration in the laws given to Israel. When through poverty a Hebrew had been forced to part with his patrimony and to sell himself as a bondservant, the duty of redeeming him and his inheritance fell to one who was nearest of kin. Here you have the story of redemption. So the work of redeeming us and our inheritance lost through sin fell upon him who is near of kin unto us. It was to redeem us that he became our kinsman, closer than father, mother, brother, friend, lover is the Lord our Savior. "Fear not," he says. You getting the picture? How many people come into this church and say, "I didn't find the love I expected, I'm leaving"? Aren't they looking for the love in the wrong place? I didn't come into this church because of the people. I came into this church because of the truth. And if this church has the truth, then the King of Truth must also be here, and it is my relationship to him that fixes me in his field, and not necessarily the relationship with the others. It would be nice to have a good relationship with the others, but primary relationship is with him. "Fear not," he says, "for I have redeemed thee. I have called thee by thy name, thou art mine. Since thou wast precious in my sight, thou hast been honorable, and I have loved thee. Therefore will I give men for thee, and people for thy life." Ellen White writes in Letters to Young Lovers, "I love you." How special are those words between two young people, but even more wonderful they become when spoken to us by our Savior, who wants us to be happy and find joy in our relationship with each other. Christ has compared his love for the church to the love of a husband and wife. The scriptures contain tender love stories such as Jacob and Rachel, the moving story of Ruth, the Moabite, who through her marriage to Boaz became a link in the genealogy of the Messiah. Our Heavenly Father is concerned over our love life. Through the inspired writings of Scripture, Ellen White, God has given counsel to young men in their quest for happiness. "Behold what manner of love the Father has bestowed upon us, that we should be called sons of God. I am come that they may have life and might have it more abundantly. These things have I spoken unto you, that my joy might remain in you, and that your joy might be full. He that touches you touches the apple of his eye." Zechariah 2 verse 8. This is the relationship we're talking about. The other, it's nice when it's there. But if it's not there, that relationship must still sustain us. This love which I speak is slow to lose patience. It looks for a way of being constructive. It is not possessive. It is neither anxious to impress, nor does it cherish inflated ideas of its own importance. Love has good manners and does not pursue selfish advantage. It is not touchy. It does not keep account of evil or gloat over the wickedness of other people. On the contrary, it is glad with all good men when truth prevails. Love knows no limit to its endurance, no end to its trust, no fading of its hope. It can outlast anything. It is, in fact, the one thing that still stands when all else has fallen. My church, and people who are suffering in the church. Our relationship with Christ is the only thing that will sustain us. The Lord has appeared of old unto me, saying, Yea, I have loved thee with an everlasting love, therefore with loving kindness have I drawn thee, Jeremiah 31:3. And Romans says, I am persuaded that neither death, nor life, nor angels, nor principalities, nor powers, nor things present, nor things to come, nor height, nor depth, nor any other creature shall be able to separate us from the love of God which is in Christ Jesus our Lord. That must include any biting or backbiting church member. The list is complete. Nothing must chase you out of this church. Nothing. If you are being chased out of this church, it means that your relationship with Christ is not complete. From the writings of Ellen White, I write because I love your soul, she writes in a letter. Dear youth, I wish to speak decidedly to you because I want you to be saved. My dear sister, I have written to you because I have a love for your soul. I do not consider your case hopeless. If I did, my pen would not be tracing these lines. Take reproof as from God. Take counsel and advice given in love. We need to be more courteous to each other. And we need to be more courteous even to those whose case seems hopeless. And to those who are apparently against everything that we stand for. So then when Boaz went to the gate, that's judgment, isn't it? And sat him down there, and behold, the kinsman of whom Boaz spoke came by, unto whom he said, Ho, such a one, turn aside, sit down here. And he turned aside and sat down. So he called him. And now he's going to negotiate with this other kinsman. And he took 10 men of the elders of the city. The number 10 is interesting, but leave it there. And said, Sit ye down here. And they sat down. And he said unto the kinsman Naomi, that is come again out of the country of Moab, sell us a parcel of land, which was our brother Elimelech's. And I thought to advertise thee, saying, Buy it before the inhabitants and before the elders of my people. And if thou wilt redeem it, redeem it. But if thou wilt not redeem it, then tell me, that I may know, for there is none to redeem it besides thee, and I am after thee. And he said, I will redeem it. He said, Sure, I'll take it. I'll take this land. Great, now I can get another piece of land. And then Boaz said to him, The land is the good news, but here's the bad news. What day thou buyest the field of the hand of Naomi, thou must buy also of Ruth the Moabitess. You get a package deal. And the wife of the dead. Oops, that means that what you're going to get is not going to be yours, but the dead man's inheritance. To raise up the name of the dead upon his inheritance. So we look at the power of selfishness. And the kinsman said, I cannot redeem it for myself, lest I mar my own inheritance. Redeem thou my right to thyself, for I cannot redeem it. No, I will not give up one iota of my selfishness. You redeem it. Now this was the manner in former times in Israel concerning redeeming and concerning changing, for to confirm all things a man plucked off his shoe and gave it to his neighbor, and this was a testimony in Israel. Therefore the kinsman said unto Boaz, buy it for thee. So he drew off the shoe. So the deal was struck. And Boaz said unto the elders and unto all the people, ye are witnesses this day that I have bought all that was Elimelech's, and all that was Kilion's and Mahlon's of the hand of Naomi. He gets everything. He gets the whole package deal. There's nothing that stays behind. I cannot keep something back. It's all or nothing. So he gave it. He who relinquishes his right to another plucked off his own shoe and gave it to him. This was symbolical and a significant and convenient ceremony, as he said, take the shoe wherewith I used to go and tread upon my land, and in that shoe do thou enter upon it. So now he's stepping into another man's shoes. He's taking it over and take possession of it. This was a testimony. This was admitted for sufficient evidence in all such cases. So now there's another owner. Moreover, Ruth the Moabitess, the wife of Mahlon, she was the wife of sickness. She'd had a sick husband, and now she gets another husband. Isn't that cute? She had a sick husband. His name was sickness, disease. Have I purchased to be my wife? Transfer, ownership, to raise up the name of the dead upon his inheritance, that the name of the dead be not cut off from amongst his brethren. In him is life unborrowed, and he can give it so that the name of the dead be not cut off. If you're married to sickness, you're going to die. And you're going to pine away if you're married to the other one. From the gate of this place, you are witnesses this day. Most assuredly I say to you, he who hears my word and believes in him who sent me has everlasting life, and shall not come into judgment, but has passed from death into life. So we have the judgment, we have the life, we have the death. Apply it to the principle of Christ. Daniel 7:22, until the Ancient of Days came and judgment was made in favor of the saints of the Most High, and the time came for the saints to possess the kingdom. They will not be cut off. Do you not know that the saints will judge the world? Isn't this fascinating, that the name of the dead be not cut off from amongst his brethren and from the gate of this place? They will actually be judges as well, these dead, these worthy dead. They will be judges, and they will be judged by you. Are you unworthy to judge the smallest matters? So the saints will judge the world. Here are the redeemed. They will sit in judgment of the others. And all the people that were in the gate, and the elders said, we are witnesses. The Lord make the woman that is come into thine house like Rachel and like Leah, which two did build the house of Israel. And do thou worthily in Ephratah, and be famous in Bethlehem. And let thy house be like the house of Pharez, whom Tamar bare unto Judah, of the seed which the Lord shall give thee of this woman. So this was one of the descendants of Judah, who was the father of the region. So Boaz took Ruth, and she was his wife. And when he went in unto her, the Lord gave her conception, and she bare a son. So Pharez, As honorable and numerous as his family was, whom though he was born of a stranger, God so blessed that his family was one of the 5 families to which all the tribe of Judah belonged, and the progenitor of the inhabitants of this city. So he was the father of Bethlehem. And he came from which tribe? Judah. The Lion of the tribe of Judah. All the linkages to Christ are in this story. He took Ruth, which he might do though she was a Moabite, because the prohibition against marrying such is to be restrained to those who continue heathens, whereas Ruth was a sincere proselyte and a convert to the God of Israel. Thus he that forsakes all for Christ shall find more than all with him. So it was legal for him to marry her, although an Israelite wasn't really allowed to marry a stranger. And the women said unto Naomi, Blessed be the Lord, which has not left thee this day without a kinsman, that his name may be famous in Israel. And it shall be unto thee a restorer of thy life, and a nourisher of thine old age. The Lord takes care of his children. For thy daughter-in-law, which loveth thee, which is better to thee than 7 sons, has borne him. So here's this child born. And Naomi took the child and laid it in her bosom and became nurse unto him. And the women, her neighbors, gave it a name, saying, There's a son born to Naomi, and they call his name Obed. He is the father of Jesse, the father of David. Obed means serving. Serving. He made before the house 2 pillars of 30 and 5 cubits, explaining how Solomon built the temple. Comes from the spirit of prophecy, Review and Herald. And the chapter was, on top of each of them was 5 cubits, and he made chains, as in an oracle, and put them on the heads of the pillars. He made 100 pomegranates and put them on the chains. And he reared up the pillars before the temple, one on the right hand and the other on the left. And he called the name of the one on the right Yachin, and the name of the one on the left Boaz. The pillars of the temple. One of them is called Boaz. Pomegranates have red seeds in them. The seeds are covered with red. And on top there is a crown. And the crown of the pomegranate on the top was the pattern for the crown of Solomon, who is a type of the king who will reign over Israel. Obed, serving. Jesse, stand out. David, loving. Here you have the entire typology of Christ and his bride. Now, isn't it fascinating that the mother of Boaz was who? Remember? Rahab. She was a prostitute. The wife of Boaz was a Moabitess. So, let's sum up. Boaz and Ruth. This is the fall of Jericho, a picture of that. Neither Boaz nor Ruth had the best of backgrounds. Would you agree with that? As far as their lineage is concerned, the mother of Boaz was Rahab. She was a prostitute, but she had helped Israel to conquer Jericho. Well, she had probably married one of the 2 spies that had come to assess the defenses of that city, and as such she was elevated to a position of honor. Ruth was a Moabitess, and thus a descendant of an indecent union between Lot and one of his daughters. Now, imagine this lineage being in the lineage of Christ. Both women, in addition, came from an idolatrous background. Yet in spite of their background, both these women are in the lineage of Christ, and that surely must typify the totality of redemption. It doesn't matter where you come from. When you make that decision, your God will be my God, and your people will be my people. You come into this marriage relationship with Christ. You are making the decision, so you are lying at Jesus' feet, uncovering them and saying, marry me. Ruth chose to follow the God of Israel and followed Naomi. Where you go, I will go. Your God will be my God. Naomi instructed Ruth to lie at the feet of Boaz. We have to lie at the feet of Jesus. Ruth was childless and a widow. Boaz was her next of kin, which literally means redeemer. Who could redeem her and raise offspring for her, should he marry her. We too have to lie at the feet of Jesus, and he too will cover us with his wing. Boaz was the landowner, Jesus is the landowner. Boaz was to her redeemer and husband. Jesus is redeemer and husband to us. Boaz had his eye on Ruth. Jesus has his eye on us. Boaz instructed his reapers to drop gleanings for Ruth. Jesus instructs his angels to drop gleanings for us. He is the bread of heaven, the living manna. As a house band, we, in our families, have to feed our families with the gleanings from God's word every single day. I mean, this is magnificent. Matthew 4 verse 4, but he answered and said, it is written, man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds out of the mouth of God. Boaz had to buy back the inheritance of Ruth, and he paid redemption money for it. And so Christ, our Redeemer and our next of kin, does the same. No matter the background, no matter our weakness, no matter where we come from, we are precious in his sight, but we are to glean in no other field. We have to be separate. At times the Lord may seem to have forgotten the perils of his church and the injury done to her by those who follow principles which he cannot endorse. We have problems in the church. But God has not forgotten. Nothing in this world is so dear to the heart of God as his church. He marks every action of the members. It is not his will that worldly policies shall corrupt her record as representative of heaven. Nothing so offends the heart of Christ as injury done those whom he died to save. His heart of love is grieved when the lame are turned out of the way by the crooked paths made by others. God does not leave his people to be overcome by Satan's temptations. He will chastise those who misrepresent him, but he will be gracious to all who sincerely repent. Christ loves his church. He will give all needed help to those who call upon him for strength, for the development of a Christ-like character. This is his church. We must take it as part of the package. Acts 2 verse 46, and they continued daily with one accord in the temple, breaking bread from house to house, did eat their meat with gladness and singleness of heart, praising God and having favor with all people, and the Lord added to the church daily such as should be saved. So here in the typology of the book of Ruth, we have this typology of Christ and us individually, and Christ and us corporatively. And the relationships we should foster with each other are all there in the typology. And I'm afraid we fail miserably. So the Lord asks us to have a total transformation, a renewing of the mind, so that we can see what is the good and beautiful, perfect will of God. May the Lord help us to better love Him and better love His church. Amen.